Part of a good user experience is making sure your designs feel reactive to a user's actions and choices. No user is here to passively admire our pretty design. They need to interact with it, and it's our job to make sure they feel like they are using it properly. If they're doing something right, they should feel it. If they're interacting with our app the wrong way, they should see that too and know how to fix it. Bubble's property editor lets us build out that exact kind of user-reactive communication. For example, to interact with our aquarium app, users need to sign in, which is why we just built out this simple sign-in form. We can't let them click the sign up button without a proper email and password. We can make that visually clearer and build trust with our users that we have their back by creating a quick conditional. So let's select our sign up button and we'll navigate over here to the conditional tab in the property editor. Let's add a condition. Conditionals are broken into two parts. The when, which is the actual definition of the condition when X is true, and the then, which defines the properties that should take effect. When X is true, do Y and Z. So what's our conditional? Well, when either the email or password field is bad, let's have the button look faded and be unclickable. To do that, under where it says when, we can add what's called a dynamic expression that determines whether or not the conditional will evaluate to true or false. So I'm going to add the following expression. When input emails value is empty, or when input email isn't valid. So again, we're capturing a true-false statement, but we're not done writing this expression yet because we also want to capture what happens if the input password element is also invalid. So we'll add another or, and this time we'll do input passwords value is empty, and one more or input password is not valid. I'll click out of there and that completes the expression. I can tell that I successfully concluded the expression by the fact that it all turned this nice shade of blue. For example, if I deleted isn't valid and just kept it at input password, you can see that it's red, and that's because this is not a completed expression. So let's add that back in. And so now we have 4 possible true-false statements all strung together as one expression that creates this single conditional. This will evaluate to true whenever either of the 2 inputs are empty or do not store valid emails or passwords. Now we just need to define the then. What are the properties we want to change about this button when this condition is true? First, let's make sure that the button can't be clicked. So let's look for a property called make interactive. And when this condition is true, we want this to be off, making the button unclickable. Next, let's make the button visually different when this conditional is true. And there's a few ways that we could do that. I will do 2 of them to make this really clear. First, let me type background. And we're going to change the background color to be maybe a more gray and less saturated faded version of that color. And the second thing that we'll do, just to really hit it home, is let's set the opacity to be, let's say 60%. Now you'll notice when I'm making these changes here, the button isn't changing. That's because these will only take effect when the condition is met. And if we want to preview what that looks like, we can toggle it with this button here. So that's what our button will look like when either input is invalid. That looks pretty clear to me. You can start to think about other conditions that you'll be able to set across all kinds of elements that you can use to better communicate things to your user. Just to really beat the point home, let's go ahead and add a third property here. Let's have the text change as well. And we'll have it say something like invalid. So now, if we are running into that issue, this is what the button will look like. If both email and password have been properly filled in, they'll see this instead. Let's preview how this looks. Click here to open run mode. And already we can see that our new conditional logic is working in real time. There is nothing in either of these, so naturally the button cannot be clicked and is labeled invalid. But once we've entered a valid email and password, we can see that the button changes. It reverts to its default design and settings. Now we just have to address the other problem, which is even when the button is ready to be clicked, nothing happens. We'll tackle that next.